Life is hectic.
Some days are just a blur.
We're Jay and Laura LaFoon, and we help busy couples stay married for life.
Welcome to the Married for Life podcast.
Welcome to the Married for Life podcast. We are super excited you're with us today.
And we're feeling so adultish this week.
We are. We're a couple of kids, but we've been doing some adult things, and it's just been scaring us to death.
We first noticed that our patio was...
Our
cement patio's probably had 3 years since it was cleaned by a person who owns a power washer, not Jay and Laura.
Yes, because Jay is mechanically impaired. I can't do anything. But the other problem is that over our patio is a honeysuckle tree.
I don't think it's honeysuckle. It's just nasty, dirty honey tree.
Yeah, I don't know how I got that name honeysuckle, because it is one filthy.
It's nasty. It drops garbage on my patio right after I blow it off.
Yes, it's nasty. So we went to our local Menards, and we bought a power washer. I called my friend Russ. I said, Russ, how much pressure do I need to have? He said...
Because we have no clue.
We have no clue. He said, minimum 2,000 PSI. I'm like, okay. So we go there. And much to my gratefulness, we found an electric power washer that is 2,200 PSI.
Because Jay doesn't like his hands dirty. He doesn't want them to smell like gasoline.
Well, and I'm not mechanical, so all I have to do is plug this in, and it works. It's fantastic. And so we spent the better part of 3 days.
We learned all the things that a power washer can clean off.
Yeah.
Besides a cement patio it can clean off.
That took us parts of 3 days.
That took us parts of 3 days. And we did the furniture, and we did some other furniture. And I think we still have stuff to do, but we felt so like manual labor. We don't do this. We were exhausted.
It's not that we're lazy. It's we just don't know how. There's a big difference.
How do I hook this hose to this? How does this work?
Right.
And then we organized the garage.
Oh, my goodness, we did.
We have had these like odds and end things sitting in our garage. I mean, Jay loves his garage. He keeps it really clean. It's always swept out. It's always, the grill's got its place. The trash cans have its place. The snowblower has its place. But we've had this corner that has like a tank of gas in it. And for a mower that we don't own. And
insect repellent.
And spray paint cans and potting soil and just sitting on the floor of the garage. So we were like, novel concept. Let's go get a shelf that we can put in the garage.
We've only lived in this house for 30 years. No, 20. But nonetheless.
Oh, so we're feeling so adultish. But yes, welcome to the Married for Life podcast. And this week we're going to be talking about how can we be mentally intimate in our marriage as we're continuing on this journey of the 4 areas of intimacy. So this week we're talking about mental I can't even say intimacy, but before we get there,
we got a shout out from a listener. His name's Joel, and he asks a very, very important question, and one that we have to wrestle with. So here we go. Joel says, I was just wondering what your view is on divorce and remarriage. When your spouse has left, abandoned you, abused you in ways, and is now committing adultery and pushing forward with the divorce, where's the point where enough is enough and it's time to accept it's over? Well, Joel, I would say if this is the circumstances of your marriage, then
you're there.
You're there. It's time to realize that she's moved past. I believe biblically, this is just my own belief, but I get this from the Bible, that there are 3 reasons that allow for divorce, even as a Christian. One is abuse, physical abuse, as a reason to give divorce. Abandonment, if someone abandons their family, and then finally adultery. Those are biblical reasons for divorce.
And it looks like they're all identified here in this question by Joel.
Right, and so you can feel free to remarry with, in my opinion, no repercussions. You're not going to be living in sin. Others might disagree with that. That's fine. But that is, you asked for our opinion, and that's kind of where we're at.
We don't, what's the word? We're not proponents of divorce.
Right. But
we're always for don't quit, stick it out. But this looks like a dead end. She's not coming back, and it's time for you to move on. So yeah, that's a hard one. Mental intimacy. What is it, and how do we attain it in marriage? Now, it's not that you have to both think the same way, or you have to both think the same, have the same views, or that who's smarter than the other. It's none of that. It's realizing that we're different, and you've been created different, and we're different for a purpose.
Right.
Yeah, God's created you as two separate human beings, and in this thing called marriage, you're gonna be different, even mentally.
I'll give you a perfect example of how just one simple
One of
way.
1,000 million.
Ways that Laura and I are different, and that is our sock drawers. Okay, if you were to look at my sock drawer, you would understand that I believe we serve a God of order, not a God of chaos. So my sock drawers.
Neither do we serve a God of boredom.
So I have athletic socks, then golf socks, then my running socks, and they're all in nice, neat rows, nicely patterned out. And then in my dress socks, I have my dress socks, black, blue, and it's all very, very orderly. Now, Laura's, on the other hand, when she opens the sock drawer, it is stuffed so full of socks that socks explode in the air, and she tries to pick two that match while she's looking at them in the air. Then she crams them all back down in there.
And if they don't match, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to look at my socks.
Oh my goodness! So
they're going to look at my shoes. My shoes have to be cute with my socks.
That's also a way that our minds operate different. I'm very much orderly and
even just this week we found ourselves, what were we doing? I don't even remember what it was we were doing. Probably it was with the pressure washer. And he's trying to tell me to go this specific way, and he says, no, blow it from over here. And where he's standing, so he's standing on one end of the table, and he says, blow it from over here. So I think he means go stand where he's standing and blow the table off from over there. No, that's not what he meant. He was using his hands to say something different, but I wasn't paying attention to his hands. I had the power washer in my hand and wasn't wanting to take skin off of my body with pressure with this big thing of water. And so I did it backwards from what he said, which happens all the time because I'm left-handed and my brain is wired differently.
That's right.
Left-handed people are wired differently than right-handed people.
And even though that's true, all marriages are psychological. One is psycho and one is logical.
But mental intimacy is about accepting your differences. And when you accept those differences, you can begin to have mental intimacy, that your brains just are wired differently. You think differently. You process information differently. And so this is really what mental intimacy is all about. It's not about thinking the same or agreeing on everything.
You don't even have to agree, because oftentimes when you disagree, it brings new perspective into your marriage.
And it doesn't have anything to do with being smarter than the other one.
Right.
It goes beyond intelligence. It's understanding that your brains work differently.
Well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back in segment 2, we're going to talk a little bit more about mental intimacy and how we attain it.
Hi, everyone. This is Paul Thomas, Director of Live Events here at Celebrate Ministries. A couple of things I want to make you aware of. Jay and Laura are headed to Israel. You can join the Lafoons for 8 days in the Holy Land starting March 17th, 2020. Not only will Jay and Laura be there, but special musical guests Jason Crabb and the Nealons will be on the trip as well. You can find out more information by going to holyland.jayandlaura.com. The Ultimate Date Night Wonder of Love Tour is set to kick off this August. Jay and Laura have an all-new comedy show and an all-new teaching on 6 ways to grow love in your marriage. You can see the schedule of dates for this fall. You can inquire about bringing Jay and Laura to your church, either this fall or in 2020, by visiting ultimatedatenight.com. Now, let's get back to Jay and Laura Lafoon.
Welcome back as we're talking about mental intimacy. And I just want to read you this story that when we wrote our book, The Spark, we interviewed thousands of people all across the country, couples, individuals, men, women, and asked them certain questions about these areas of intimacy, whether it was social, mental, emotional, spiritual. We asked them all about these different areas of intimacy. And here is what one woman wrote back in answering our survey about mental intimacy. Eric never got the best grades in high school when we started dating. I never gave him the credit he deserved, assuming that he didn't measure up. Over the years, I have come to respect his thoughts so much more than I could have imagined. My father is someone I've always gone to for advice. He seems to be wise in all areas of life, and I almost always follow his advice. When we were dating and first married, I would find myself arguing with my husband, siding with my father's advice. We both generally tend to still value my dad's advice. However, I want Eric's insights first and foremost. lost. And now there are even more times I don't go to Dad for a second opinion. Eric is very intellectually talented. It's just not math and music like me. It's politics, automotive, marketing, and business. I've come to respect him. See, ladies and gentlemen, mental intimacy is discovering, identifying, and appreciating the intelligence of your spouse. And it really is understanding. Jay jokingly calls me his left-handed freak of nature because my brain just works differently. I see things from a different perspective. Because I'm female, so men and women see things differently. Because I'm left-handed, he's right-handed. There's something there about this left-handed, right-handed brain thing, but he understands that.
You grew up in the South, I grew up in the North, and there's different thought forms and different thought patterns that exist just in your origin of nature.
Right, and just the way we process information and think. And, again, this isn't necessarily mental, but in my mind, when I see a man walk into a building with a hat on, I think it should come off his head. That's just the way I was raised. That's not the way you were raised. And so that probably doesn't bother you like it bothers me.
Not at all.
And up here in Michigan, everybody wears hats everywhere they go.
The other thing, too, I think, is that, I am a quick thinking, quick decision-making person. That's just the way God has made me. I feel like I know the answer, right off the bat. Laura is a processor. And so early in our marriage, I would get really frustrated with her because she wouldn't give me an answer or her opinion on a certain thing because she needed time to process. And it wasn't until I realized, she is smart. She does have wisdom. God has gifted her with a very, very intelligent brain. She just has to think it through in her mind before making a decision. And when she does make that decision, it's 99% the right one.
But
she picked me.
Yeah. But I did have to communicate that to you. Early on in our marriage, you would say, "What do you think about this?" And I would just agree with you because you wanted an answer
and that's
then.
Life was so good.
And I would just agree with what you were saying rather than thinking it through and maybe having a different opinion or a different thought form. And now that I've communicated to you, you know what? I can't just give you an answer right now. I have to process what you're asking me to do. And now Jay uses the words. He doesn't say, "Here's something I want you to think about." He says, "Here's something I want you to process." Right. And when he says that, I understand he's giving me the time to not answer him right away, but to really think about it, contemplate it, and get back to him on what I think. So that's really what we're talking about when we talk about mental intimacy, is understanding that you're different, understanding that your spouse is different from you, identifying those differences, and rejoicing in those differences. And that's really what we're going to delve into next week as we talk about how we are mentally different. Not who's smarter than the other, but how you are smart.
Right. The phrase is this: it's not how smart you are, it's how you are smart. Multiple intelligences and mental intimacy really help us see that there are different ways that people are smart, and we need to honor those ways. We need to rejoice in those ways, and we're going to talk about that next week. But before we leave you, we want to give you the definition of mental intimacy from our book, The Spark, page 48.
Mental intimacy is discovering, that's what we're going to do next week, is discover and identify how you are smart, your intelligences, and then give you ways to appreciate the intelligence of your spouse. We all know, if you've listened to Jay and I at all, you know we are huge HGTV fans and Food Network fans. And we often just look at those people cooking those dishes and we're like, how do you just come up with that stuff? Because their food intellect. I don't know what culinary intellect. Then you look at those people on American Ninja Warrior, where they do these things that are like unbelievable. We have our friend Brad.
Call you out, Elder.
Our friend Brad. Okay, so if you've never watched American Ninja Warrior, they are elite athletes who have to do. It's basically an obstacle course that is unbelievable. Okay, these are elite athletes. Our friend Brad is
elite hunter.
Is an elite hunter. He is that. He's an elite taxidermist. He's, 50-something years old and, a real big, tall hunter guy. He thinks he can do the spider wall, which is where you have to jump from a trampoline, plant your feet on either side of this wall and then work your way across
Well, no,
it.
there's two walls facing
each other. It's just hilarious, and we laugh every time that, Brad, you would never be able to do the spider wall. I couldn't even jump on the first little obstacle that they have. But these people can. Why? Because they're in tune with their bodies. They have an intellect that allows them to be able to do that kind of feats that we can't do. The other thing, the other show that we like is Survivor. Those people are just insane. They don't have any intellect at all. But they have the ability to survive in the wilderness. They have the ability to play a social game that, Jay and I couldn't do that. I couldn't lie to people. I couldn't. And that's not a bad, most of us would think that's a bad thing to be that mean, but they're playing a game and they have the intellect to do it. So it's understanding that you are different and appreciating the differences, identifying how you're smart, discovering it, and appreciating the intelligence that you have of your spouse. And again, we're going to delve into those next week on the Married for Life podcast.
So remember, it's not how smart you are, it's how you are smart. God gave you a brain. It just works differently than your spouse's, and it allows you guys to do things together that you wouldn't be able to do on your own.
We often say, together we have one brain.
And from this one brain to you, we want to say thanks for listening. We want to ask you to share this. Please rate this on iTunes or whatever platform you're listening to it on, and tell your friends about the Married for Life podcast, because we help busy couples stay happily married for life.